Hello everyone and welcome to the SBK Betting Podcast, coming to you live from the SBK studios. I'm delighted that I am here in person with Tom Collins. Of course, we've always got Ross Millar on the line from his chateau in France, and really pleased to say that we're coming into the end of the flat season proper off the back of what was just a sublime weekend. TC, we did it again, the 1-2 in the Cesarewitch, but this time redemption, and your run for Ascot got it. I mean, what a performance from that horse, and obviously being a victory, it's a great second too, but first you must have been screaming with delight with that.
I was. It's just fantastic to see a horse cruise into contention, especially in a big field handicap, because so many things can go wrong for any horse in races like that. 20 odd runners, 2 miles plus. Plenty of moments in that race, something could have gone wrong, could have found trouble, whatever. But Run for Oscar just cruised in like a horse who was £20 well in, zoomed to the front and won with loads in hand. Great run from your horse as well. And, this is a race I think that is going to be synonymous with the SBK Betting Pod going forward. We've got a great record in it. Hopefully we continue with the winners this week as well.
Yeah, hopefully so. You put it up at 6-1, went into 4-1. It was heavily punted. They definitely lined that horse up as well. And Ross, a winning nap for you as well with Flying Honours, another serious juvenile for the Charlie Appleby team to look forward to. Alflalia was another winning nap for the pod, but despite missing the break, won at 5-2. And then, yes, we had Vino Victrix I put up, and at 20-1 went into 9-1. That was another gamble, the Cesarewitch. But as a whole, we were landing some good gambles last weekend, and we go into this Champions weekend, the Champions Day at Ascot, with lots to look forward to. And I think on an overall look to this, Tom, when you look at Champions Day, you want true champions, and we definitely have one. We're going to go into it, but from a look at it and from a betting perspective, it's a really solid day, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really solid day. I've actually got the stat attack just aimed at the whole of Champions Day, so we'll come to that later on in the pod. But I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of short price favourites, but a couple of big price winners, hopefully. I'm sure Ross will supply a couple of those as well. Yeah,
we'll get into it. We've got 5 Group 1s for Champions Day, so we're going to look at all of them. Normally we just save just the feature races, but these are such cracking races, we thought we need to give them all a go. And we're going to start with the Long Distance Cup, which is the first race at 1:25 on Saturday. And I'm really pleased that plenty of these have stood their ground. Eldar Alderov, the St. Ledger winner, is in there at 9-4 currently, favourite. Trushan not far behind at 5-2. We've got Waterville, the Irish Cesarewitch winner, at 3-1. Coltrane, who beat Trushan last time, 8-1. Quickthorn, 12-1, 16-1 for the Ebor winner, Trawlerman. Wordsworth, 50-1, and Stratham, 66-1. Ross, let's start with you first, because the Long Distance Cup, I think, has got lots of really intriguing form lines. When I was thinking about Eldar Alderov, I was thinking, was it a vintage St. Ledger? But then you've seen the horses he's beaten have come out and won, and I just think potentially maybe with a bit of a weight advantage that he's got with some of his older horses and the Roger Varian form, he's a good horse in this field. But do you think it's a bit much to ask at this stage of his career?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, all week I was fairly confident that he'd be who I was tipping up, and just the price just is skinny enough. I think there's plenty of likely winners in this. Whoever wins it, you'll understand why. But they all have questions to some degree to answer. I mean, Eldorado, he's got to step up in trip. That's the first thing to say. I mean, I'm sure he looks like he'll stay the trip. Taking on his elders, he gets the weight. Trushan, is the ground going to come soft enough for him? And he's wholly going to be able to hold on to him. He's developing a nice, horrible habit of just getting a bit keen early in the stages. Waterville has to step up. Coltrane has got the form line, but Andrew Balding has been quoted this week as saying he's just a bit concerned that he's gone over the top. Now, I don't have a stat attack for that, but just anecdotally, when trainers suggest they think they might be going over the top, I think more often than not they're right. Which brought me to Quickthorn, who's got a quick turnaround to overcome. He didn't run all that well last time in France, but they put that down to the very soft ground. He's beaten Coltrane, who's beaten Trushan. I could see him getting a bit of a freebie on the front. Not many are going to want to go forward, with the exception perhaps of Trawlerman. But I think he's perhaps a bit more rideable than Trawlerman when ridden forward. So it wouldn't surprise me if Tom Marquand could get him to the front, set his own fractions. If the 14-day turnaround isn't too much for him, I just thought they've all got questions. He's a bigger price than those in front of him, all with questions to answer. So at round about 12-1, I think he's a good each way shout.
Yeah, Quick Thorn, definitely that wasn't his true running in France last time. I just thought that the Huey Morrison team were a little bit out of form. Obviously, they've had those two good runners in the Cesarewitch, but they've just been lacking on a few winners recently. But potentially, Quick Thorn is sort of bouncing. That's why they're running him again, because I would have thought that Huey Morrison might have just sort of decided to put him away. But he is in this race, and he is currently 12-1 shot for Ross. Tom, thoughts on Trueshan, because that was a really strange run last time when he was beaten by Coltrane. Didn't look like himself, really. Is a long, tired season, especially for these stairs, kind of catching up with him?
Maybe. Alan King did say, though, that he didn't let himself down on the ground, because previously he ran on fast ground in the Goodwood Cup and when he finished third. And apparently that left a bit of a toll on Trueshan, so he didn't perform last time out. I'm willing to put a line through it. This is a super competitive and consistent horse on a regular basis, Trueshan. Very rarely disappoints. And if you go back to that Goodwood Cup where he finished third, it was a phenomenal effort. Now, Hollydoll gave him a good ride and there was a bit of interference here and there. But I think a repeat of that would suffice in this race. And we can't forget that Trueshan has also won the last two editions of the Long Distance Cup. So this is probably his target, whereas the likes of Quick Thorn, who Ross has obviously mentioned, I think would have just used this as like an aftermath kind of, we'll end the season here, rather than we've been aiming and getting him 100% ready for this race. I think it's a similar case for Adayar, to be honest. Like, yes, he deserves to be favoured because he won the St. Ledger, but no horse has ever won the St. Ledger and then gone on to win the Long Distance Cup. Only two horses have attempted in the last 5 years, but they both disappointed. I also don't think it was the best St. Ledger, I have to say. Giavolotto finished fourth, probably would have been second with a clear run, and he's subsequently been beaten in listed company. So, yeah, Trueshan for me. There's forecast rain Friday and Saturday. That will help his cause. Lots of positives.
Yeah, he's definitely, coming into this with so much going for him. Was won this race the last twice as well, and Hollydoll just loves him. So Trueshan, therefore, TC 5-2 currently. I think there's a bit of a fly in the ointment here. I do think that Waterville is skinny, though, 3-1. The Irish Cesarewitch victory was something to behold. Yeah. Wayne Lorden's ride, you can't really get much better than that. He is a horse that likes to be held up. He would want a bit of pace, probably want a bit of bigger field than this. Obviously, the Baaeed team don't have Kyprios, but you'd imagine that they probably know what they have with Kyprios as a good yardstick, and having him in this race and testing him in amongst these serious Group 1 performers, I've got a bit of confidence. He's coming out of a handicap company, and I do like him. I like his profile, and he does, like Adayar, get the weight from his elders with a bit of 9 stone on his back. So all differing in opinion for the Long Distance Cup to get your day off to a good start, and we'll see how that does, bringing us into the 2 o'clock. Which is the next race that we're going to feature. This is always massively competitive, and with the rain forecast could just throw up a bit of a few changes in the betting. What we've got right now, this is the British Champion Sprint Stakes. 6 furlongs is the trip. Creative Force currently at 5-2 favourite. Rohan 7-2. Kinross, intriguing. Really needs to prove himself over 6 furlongs, but he's done nothing wrong this season. Is 11-2. Perfect Power. Tom Marquand is 8-1. 9-1 for Art Power, and 10-1 bar those. We love our sprints. I feel like we've seen these horses throughout the season and opposing each other, coming up against each other. I always feel that one of these horses is going to have their day in the sunshine. Mm-hmm. Is it, for you, is the betting a little bit disproportionate for some of a lot of these horses? What they've done, you go down to 25-1 with the likes of Go Bears Go. Mm-hmm. They're all genuine, solid, top class horses, aren't they? Yeah, it's a really competitive race featuring loads of proper Group 1 horses. I think Creative Force, the price is far too skinny. Now, he won this race last year, and potentially bookmakers are thinking, we want to play very tentatively with this horse. They might have aimed him back here. We haven't seen him since the July Cup. So whether he's suffered a setback, I'm not too sure. But if not, they've been aiming him here and, waiting for that soft ground. The one negative I have with Creative Force is the high draw. If you look back at the replays of the last 3 to 4 years, you want to be far side, middle to far side, and he's drawn reasonably high. That's a similar concern with his stablemate Naval Crown as well, who will also appreciate the soft ground, but again is drawn in still 16. So, at the prices, I want to avoid both of those two, and a horse is in here that I really love.
and that's Rohan. I think I've tipped him up 3 or 4 times on these pods. He's a fantastic horse, brilliant story. Began running in handicaps off a mark of 55 just 21 months ago. Now 21 months sounds a long time, but a mark of 55 this horse ran off. That's a ridiculously low mark. And now he's competing off 113. He's shown dramatic improvement. I thought he was supremely impressive last time in the Ben Goff as well. He won with loads of hand that day, like Adam Kirby didn't go for everything at all. He's super at Ascot, especially when there's cut in the ground. And I love his draw in stall 6. So with a massive speed in this race, I just think we could see another feel-good story with Rohan.
Yeah, and you've got Adam Kirby jocked up again. I know he's had a range of jockeys, but he's got on well with him. I thought he gave him a super ride last time.
Yeah, and Adam Kirby in the post-race interview was keen to mention he wasn't getting the horsepower this year. So I think the fact that he's staying on Rohan, he can make another big point to say that, you know what, I'm Adam Kirby and I deserve to be riding Group 1 horses.
Yeah, he definitely does. He's a fabulous jockey. Rohan for TC currently it's 7-2, a second favourite. But I just think that the shape of this betting might just shake up a little bit. There's plenty within this field that could have a cracking chance, and also sort of come into their own maybe at this time of season as well. Ross, thinking about all of that, especially with the draw, especially what you've seen this season from some of these really hardy, battle-hardened sprinters, do you think that there's one that has their day in the sunshine coming, or one that just sort of deserves this, or is it a lot more obvious than that?
No, I think it's not obvious, is it? I don't think there's a champion bidding to show they're the outstanding champion. I think it's a typical sprint that you run it 10 times and you probably get 5 or 6 different winners. The one I came down on, and she's a very difficult filly to get a grip on, is Tenebrism. It's hard to know what her best trip is. I mean, she sometimes looks like she's staying on over a mile, and then looks to get, sort of a bit outpaced at times, well over shorter. But I thought her best run this year was over 7 furlongs in the Jean Prat. She'll handle a little bit of cut in the ground if the rain comes. I think TC's right. I think there's plenty of pace in this. She'll be staying on it in the death, and it's the first time back over 6 furlongs since the impressive Chiefly Park win last year. Now that hasn't worked out all that well, but she was very impressive on just her second start. I think she's clearly a filly of ability. Alcohol free dropped back to 6 furlongs early this year from a mile, and I'm hoping she'll do the same.
Thinking about the drop back and trip, do you think, if you looked at this and you weren't too familiar with your racing and you want to get involved with Champions Day because it is, littered with these Group 1 races, you looked at Kinross and you think, oh, he's done nothing wrong. There's ones to his name. He's clearly a very high class animal. Why can't he step back to 6 furlongs and win in the same vein like Tenebrism can?
No, he was certainly on the shortlist. I think if you work on the basis there is going to be a bit of a pace collapse, then he's right there, and he is in fine form. At some point, they'll go to the well once too often, but with these sprinters in particular, when they're in good form, just keep running them. And I think he's got a live chance, and I think if a bit of rain comes, it's only going to help him more.
Yeah, he definitely shouldn't be overlooked at all. I find it really difficult not to put him up based on, what great heart he is in. He is 11-2. But we've seen some big price winners of this race throughout the years. And I think that Hugo Palmer and his team have been waiting for this race off the back of the fact that their horse, Brad the Brief, has been a non-runner on the last 2 occasions due to ground. They have sent this horse over to Ireland looking for Given the Ground, and they will get Given the Ground on Saturday. And that's really key for him. He's just kind of turned a corner. They've changed something, whatever it is, but he's really realised the potential that he showed when he was a younger horse this season with 2 wins, albeit possibly not beating a strong field last time at the Curragh. But it is crucial, as I said, the ground. Pleased to hear from TC's Stat Attack because he's drawn 5 next to your horse, Rohan. So that's not too bad as well. And David Egan's having a great end to his season, isn't he? He really has been giving a great lot of opportunities. He won on this horse at Haydock. And I think that's quite a nice angle. This is a slightly more fresh horse, whereas you'll see, to Ross's point about Kinross, a lot of horses who've done plenty of racing coming to the end of a long season, and at this midway point in October, I just think having fresh legs could help. So again, three different selections for you in this sprint. We've got Brad the Brief, Rohan, or Tenebrism as selections, and good prices as well, at least. We're going against our favourites as we head into our next race that we're going to feature, which is the British Champions Fillies and Mares Stakes. 1 mile 4 furlongs is the trip, and Emily Upjohn with a hood declared for the first time is the 7-2 favourite, second in the Oaks, last seen running a stinker in the King George Ascot. Eternal Pearl for the Godolphin team is next up at 5-1. Mimic You is 6-1. Ashada was last year's winner, is 7-1. Sela Rossa sevens as a Sweet Lady, and 9-1. Bar those. Ross, I'll come back to you. Fillies, they're funny. They can be interesting horses to manage, to train, and Emily Upjohn is clearly one of them. She had the world at her feet, didn't she, at the beginning of the season, and she's on a bit of a redemption mission. I thought she was slightly short. I'm surprised to see her at this price, considering what she has to prove, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Of all the races we're looking at, this is my least favourite. I think it's a real trappy affair. Eternal Pearl has definitely got plenty of ability, but I'm just concerned she's looked a bit wayward under pressure a couple of times. And at Ascot, they do have to get past the chute that they come out onto the track before they get to the post. And you see plenty hang across the track. That would worry me for her. Mimic You and Ashada, I've got a feeling both are better over a bit further. Sela Rossa is a decent filly, but she's dropping back in trip and she's backing up fairly quickly. Emily Upjohn clearly has ability. You might remember when we looked at the Oaks, I was very concerned about her settling in the Oaks because she'd looked very keen in a piece of work on Gallop's morning at Epsom. Didn't bother her in the Oaks, but it certainly was a big problem in the King George last time where she was just far too keen. As was Westover in the King George. Now that clearly had left a mark on him because he didn't run anywhere near to his level in the Arc last time. So it's got to be a concern. The hood is a great addition, but also she's been off the track for 84 days, so she could just be a bit fresh. So I really don't know. I mean, if I had to have a bet, and I haven't got to have a bet, but if I had to have a bet, I think I'd probably go with Emily Upjohn and hope that the hood and a bit of Frankie magic can get her to settle. I think there's enough pace in here that she might settle a bit better, but I think it's a really trappy affair. Nothing I'm sort of outstandingly keen on, but if I was going to be one, it'd be Emily Upjohn because I think she's the best filly in the race.
Okay, so tentative selection, if anything, from Emily Upjohn for Ross. Yeah, a race that you no need to get involved if there's no strong fancy at all. But there are fillies in here that, again, look, I've had long seasons, maybe trying to claim their first Group 1 success. Sela Rossa did claim her first Group 1 success not that long ago, and really intriguing that William Haggis is throwing her in again. He's obviously up for the Trainers' Championship as well, and these races are worth a huge amount of money, aren't they? So if she's well, they're going to roll again and do the best to fight off the Charlie Appleby charge. With that in mind, Tom, with what Ross has said, is there anything that really stands out to you here that you're looking forward to seeing, or is this a race that you'd rather leave alone?
I think it's a really hard race to assess. I mean, 3-year-olds have won 7 of the last 8 editions, and maybe that trend will see punters running to the windows to back the likes of Emily Upjohn and Eternal Pearl, but not so fast would be my advice here. I don't like Emily Upjohn. I think she's relatively short. The first time hood is a worry for me, and last time out in the King George, she was just pretty bad. The soft ground's also a concern. So there are lots of negatives there, and at a reasonably short price, I think you should look elsewhere. Eternal Pearl could be good enough, could be the next Emily Upjohn, but we don't know. This is a marked step up in class for her. Obviously represents leading connections and in great form, but at the same time, there's still an unknown there, and she's still relatively short. So this is a race where you just want to have a stab at something at a big price, I think, or a decent price anyway. And the one I came down on is French filly, Sweet Pearl. Now, the main angle here is the fact that deep ground, I'm anticipating at least soft. Because there's heavy rain on Friday, definitely on Saturday as well. And it's currently good to soft, so why wouldn't it be? Deep ground will suit her better than any other filly in this race. And her fourth in the Group 1 Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud behind Alpinista took a big boost when Alpinista obviously went on to win the Arc. She proved her ability last time in the Vermeil. I don't think it was a great race, but Tuesday was in behind, Lilac Road was in behind. So there were some good fillies in there. she had new tactics that day. She went to the front. I think she's very versatile because before that race, in the Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud, she came from behind and she finished the race off well. So I think there are lots of positives for her, and around 10-1 or maybe a bit bigger on the day. I don't know what price she is now. I think Sweet Pearl's a good each way alternative.
Sweet Lady, to make sure, to confirm, Sweet Lady, yes. I think you're going to confuse with Eternal Pearl, that's fine. Sweet Lady, 7-1 at the moment. I think I love those angles in with Alpinista as well. She's really, when I look back on that last run, leading, the tactics, I was thinking about Ascot and how the racing style benefits. Do you think that it's a track that sometimes that closers can sort of get the best out of a horse that goes off a little bit too hard? Would you want her to do the same thing here at Ascot that she did at Longchamp?
I think it's a very fair track. I mean, Sweet Lady can be ridden either way. Like if there's no early gallop, no big fast early gallop, and the connections realise that, or jockey realises that, and within the first 100 yards, then he can take a pull, or he can go to the front. It's completely up to him. I wouldn't necessarily be for him going forward on Sweet Lady or pulling back on Sweet Lady. I think however the race pans out, he'll be able to find the perfect position for her, and that's a major tick, because I think some of these horses, the likes of Emily Upjohn, if the pace is slow, she could reef and pull for her head, and that could be game over within the first furlong. So I think the versatility of Sweet Lady is a big tick.
Okay, she will be a Sweet Lady for you if she is able to justify your confidence in her. 7-1, as I said. I'm going to disagree with you about Eternal Pearl. I think she's on a great upward trajectory. She's obviously been handled in a very careful way by Charlie Appleby. At the beginning of the season, she was running in maiden races, and she won her novice, proved herself, and she's just slowly going through the gears. And now the Group 1 is essentially her biggest test yet. But there's no reason why in a race which is very open, she can take this next test in her stride. And for a team that just know how to do so well with these kind of horses too, Eternal Pearl for me is 5-1. So again, differing of opinion. There's so many, whichever angle you want to take, we've got them essentially for this Champions Day. Might not be the same as we get into the QE2, but we'll see. I really like this race, Queen Elizabeth's Second Stakes. We've thrown up some great races in the past. Obviously, this is when Baaeed proved himself to be the best miler at the time when he beat Palace Pier last year. The Revenant, King of Change, Roaring Lion, all recent winners as well. So we have seen absolute superstars in the past. And Spiral's bidding to be just that at 5-6. Favourite back on the track that she won at Royal Ascot. Modern Games, intriguing that they've rooted him here after winning so well at Woodbine. Surely he's en route to the Breeders' Cup as well. The Revenant, who was a winner of this race before, is 92 for Francis Graffard. He's got Ryan Moore jocked up, which is an intriguing. Jadumi's been supplemented for a big price of 6-1, and then we've got 14-1 bar those. So maybe, TC, we'll come to you first. As I said, we've had some real champions in this race before. Do you think Inspiral is a champion?
Oh, it's a great question, because I haven't got her right once this year. Not once. Every single time I've completely got her wrong. I was dead against her in the Coronation. She went and won first time up this year. Then I thought the Falmouth was a penalty kick. She somehow lost. And then last time out in France, I was against her with the likes of the ill-fated Caribus. Erevan was in there as well in the Jacques Lemarbois. Yeah, she won. So I really can't get her right. Maybe she's a champion. Maybe she's just really disappointed in the Falmouth. And she could be the next big thing. But I cannot back her at a short price. That's not to say she can't win. Don't get me wrong. And Jonathan Thady Gosden need this for the title race, especially if Emily Upjohn wins earlier on. But yeah, I've got to look elsewhere. And I'm going to be with Modern Games. Now, maybe that's because I love North American racing, and I was in the Sky Sports studio when he won the Woodbine Mile, and I was raving about the performance. Now, that race is nowhere near as good as this race, don't get me wrong. It was a pretty weak affair. But he travelled so well, and he has a real turn of foot that's elite, a Group 1 turn of foot. The Sussex Stakes runner-up performance behind Baaeed, I think if he repeats that, he'll win this race. That's not necessarily going to happen because the ground is a question mark. As you say, the Breeders' Cup's probably the end goal for him, whereas in Spiral, this is probably the end goal. Though she is entered in a couple of Breeders' Cup races, but I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that effort in the Sussex Stakes is good enough for Modern Games. Last time out in the Woodbine Mile, he proved he's still very capable. And in the past, he's proved that he can travel across the globe to North America and come back to the UK and still perform at that same high level. So I'm not expecting any fall off in form. And if he repeats that, I think he's a big player and maybe puts up to Inspiral and beats her.
Okay, and the ground, that would be my only concern with him. Obviously, we've seen him win in France on slightly softer ground, but recently he's looked like he wants to sort of top of the ground. Would that be a concern if it gets really testing?
For sure, I think that's the biggest concern with him. He's clearly very good on fast or firm ground, as proven at Will by Mile, but I think he's versatile enough to handle it. Maybe he doesn't handle it as well as a couple of others, but I'm happy to take a chance.
Yeah, to handle it, and whether it's essentially means that he's unable to really pick up and use the gears. Sometimes horses just a wheel spinning when it gets really testing. But we'll just have to monitor the rainfall over the next couple of days. Ross, are you with Tom? Or are you against Tom with the opinions around Unspiral?
I completely agree to you. So I've got her wrong every single time. I'm hoping I've got it right this time, and I'm hoping he's right that the ground might just blunt the speed of modern games, because I do think he's the only legitimate danger in here, to be honest. I'm convinced we'll see Inspiral over 10 furlongs at some point. She looks a really strong stayer at this trip. I think the soft ground is going to make this a stamina test. Ascot seemed to suit her really well when she was very impressive there the last time. I think we're looking for champions. She is a champion, I think. I think she's a really smart filly. I was surprised that she had the speed to do what she did over a mile. I think this stamina test suits her far better. She gets a nice £3 from the rest. I think she'll win this for Frankie and John Gosnell.
Yeah, she's had a pretty flawless career, hasn't she? Despite that, the only one sort of blot in her copybook is when she just ran flat behind Prosperous Voyage at Newmarket earlier on in the season, the Falmouth Stakes. But she's been pretty hardy, especially against the Colts as well. So look, she's very strong at the top of the betting as well, 5 to 6. So you're either with her or you're against her. Look, this is a race where we've got 9 runners, and I actually think, if anything, there could be a bit of value, bit of each way value with Jadumi, who has been supplemented by Simon Ed Crisford. I was really impressed with what he did at Leopardstown, where he put the race to bed in the matter of moments, really. Didn't obviously beat much. This was the Boomerang Mile, but he just did it in the shape of a horse that's just getting better and better. And Ed Crisford even said that he was thinking that potentially he could go Champion Stakes as this horse could step up and trip as well. But not many people are brave enough to take on Baaeed, so they're sticking with the mile. And I do think that he represents just a little bit of value. 6 to 1 you can get, and James Dawes, but back after that hand injury, and really hope that he can have a good day on Champion Stakes Day. We have gone through 4 races and we still have not selected anything as a team.
Crazy.
So I don't know if what we've been doing over the flat season that we just have not been listening to each other, but for whatever it means, we're coming down to a different route, but that's fine. We'll see. I thought we'd get to the Champion Stakes and this would be a no-brainer. Then I've actually been able to see what everyone is selected, so I already know, and it's going to shock everyone, but we haven't agreed on this race either, and I'm fascinated. But yes, we're going to come to the Champion Stakes now, final race that we're going to preview. And I thought this would be the quickest preview segment of them all. Obviously, we've got the wonderful Baaeed finishing out his career in this race. He is 1 to 4 to make it a perfect 11 out of 11. All Champions Days need champions, and he's been everything that we want in racing and more. He's shown he's got the gears. He's shown he can stay this 10 furlong trip as well. He does have a decent rival in the shape of the Derby winner Adayar at 7 to 2. Bay Bridge, he's back to prove himself again at 8 to 1. My Prospero is 25 to 1, and unsurprisingly bigger prices for the rest. But I tell you, he can be beaten apparently. Apparently, TC, think he can be beaten. Apparently, Ross, you do. You've got to give us a very good reason as to why Baaeed might be beaten on Saturday.
Well, let me clear something up. Baaeed will win this race. I agree with you 100%. But the price tells you that. He's the best horse in the race by a considerable margin. He has course form. He's 10 from 10. He's unbeaten. How can you take him on? He's 1 to 4. That's how. Like, for win purposes, you're not going to make money. You're going to make 20p. You know, it's very poor odds for those punters who like to have a tenner on, you know, rather than those who want to have bigger bets. And fair play if you do, because 1 to 4 is then a decent price. It has a much better each way shape to it than a win shape, in my opinion. And I just haven't jumped off the Bay Bridge bandwagon just yet.
Oh.
Yeah, I've loved this horse since he won the London Gold Cup at Newbury back in May 2021. I thought he was going to develop into the best middle distance prospect that we've got in the UK. Now, I say that in retrospect when Baaeed was running over a mile and therefore wasn't in this division. Baaeed is obviously a better horse than Baybridge has shown so far. Heading into Royal Ascot this year, I thought he was going to romp home, but he bumped into a good one in State of Rest in the Prince of Wales. State of Rest was given a good ride, but he's a multiple Group 1 winner anyway. So, it was a good performance in second, beaten by a good horse. I expected more, didn't come. Last time out in the Eclipse, I don't know what happened, Jess, because I was all over Baybridge. He finished 5th of 5. It was a bit of a bunch finish, messy race. Mishra should have won in my opinion. But anyway, by the by, I'm going to put a line through that effort. I don't think that was the real Baybridge. And if you look at RPRs, his 2 previous efforts are much better than that, £8 better. So I'm willing to give Baybridge another go after a long absence. 8-1s, I think, is a very fair price. There's not much depth in here. Baaeed wins. You've got second and third to play with. Baybridge finishes in the places and rewards each way backers. Okay, very good point. And if you scroll into this podcast and suddenly you hear TC saying 8-1, not much depth in this race, comes with a caveat. He is second, maybe third to Baaeed. That is crucial. Okay, so we're not going to sell Tom down the river. He does think Baaeed will win this race, but there is value around. I think that is important when you're trying to, if you want to bet in every race, but it's probably, if anything, of all the races, not a betting contest. Or is it, Ross?
I just think the price disparity is insulting to Adayar and to Baybridge, to be fair. I think TC's right. I think Baybridge probably should have finished in front of Mishriff. Adayar already has finished in front of Mishriff. The Juddmonte International was a great performance by Baaeed. But you look at what those in behind have done since. Second was Mishriff, was lapped in the arc. The third is Sabuska, who's a lovely horse, but he's not a top-notcher. And the fourth, Dubai Honour, was beaten nearly the best part of 3 lengths in an all-weather Group 3 last time. 4-1 on, no thank you very much. And he's got to cope with, ground on the softer side of good to soft. TC saying soft ground, there's lots of rain forecast. This becomes an entirely different test to 10 furlongs at Doncaster. Adayar will make this a test. He'll cope with the soft ground. His 4th in the arc last year doesn't look all that bad now because Toccata Tasso ran a super race this time from being drawn right out in the car park. I think he's a decent price. There's some people that back 5-1 each way. That wouldn't be my sort of way, but I just don't think this is the penalty kick for Baaeed that all us fairy tale fantasists want it to be. In no way will it diminish his ability and his legendary status, if you like, if he gets beat, because it will be down to the soft ground and not seeing out the trip to a superior stayer. But I don't think he's just going to rock up here and canter off into the distance, waving to his fan club. I think this is a proper race. I think it's the toughest race he's been in. Adayar is no mug, and I think he gets here fresh. That's another key point. This has been the target. They're clearly not frightened of Baaeed, otherwise they'd go elsewhere. I think it's a really exciting race, and if Baaeed wins, fantastic. But I don't think that the market's got this quite right, to be fair.
Okay, Ross, happy to take Baaeed on. It takes an incredibly brave man, and that's why you come to the SBK podcast, because we have a very brave man in Ross Millar. I think he's totally wrong. I can't see past him. I think you're becoming more wild by the second with everything you're saying here. I don't think it matters what ground he's got for Baaeed. I don't think it matters what race setup. I think this is it will be fairly straightforward for him. I think he's got too much speed, if anything. Yes, the ground will be a bit of a test for him, but I think these true champions can run on whatever, and he's proven himself time and time again. And yes, Adayar might be fresh, but he won a 3-horse race last time. And he looked pretty big as well. I'd like to see him strip a lot fitter to beat a horse like Baaeed here. But look, it's going to be interesting, and we'll see how Champion Stakes falls for Baaeed's final swan song, which is extremely sad, but it will be a wonderful occasion on Saturday. So I think it's quite obvious that I'm just sticking to Baaeed, not a betting proposition at all. You're sticking with Baaeed? Not a betting proposition at all. But look, we have gone through all 5 races and we've got all 5 different opinions. So always intriguing. And I think that makes this day so competitive as well. So I'm really pleased that we've got such a healthy competition lining up at Ascot on Saturday. Now we've gone through all these, we've still got the best of the week, can be anywhere, nap from anywhere on Saturday. And look, I think Saturday, if anything, marks the end of the flat season proper, I'm sad to say. But we do have lots of all-weather racing coming up. We've got Breeders' Cup and everything. So it's not over yet, Tom. But it means that we will be looking heavily at jumps racing, I'd imagine, and we'll have jumps previews too. And potentially there's a nap from outside of the flat realms for you, Ross?
Yeah, I have broken ranks this week, Jess, and I've gone to Newton Abbott for the 145. The Tim Vaughan trained Bells of Peterborough. He's £4 lower over fence than the others over hurdles. He only had the one run over fences, and he didn't look all that good, to be fair. It was at Ayr. He put in a few sketchy jumps, but I thought he got a fairly negative ride for a first-time chaser. I like to see my first-time chasers ridden with positivity and filled with confidence, and on this occasion, he didn't really get that sort of ride. £3 conditional takes over, who was very impressive last weekend at Chepstow. A real positive ride that day on a horse that was having his first run over regulation fences. I think Bells of Peterborough is a decent horse. Any rain that comes will suit him. Trip is ideal, and I think a more positive ride can see him capitalise on this lower chase mark than hurdle mark.
Okay, Bells of Peterborough for Ross for his nap for Saturday. Tom, is it at Ascot? Have you gone elsewhere?
No, I've stuck to Ascot. I was looking elsewhere, but I thought, why complicate things? I just love Rohan in the 2 o'clock at Ascot, the Champion Sprint Stakes. I think everything is right for him. The ground's perfect, the draw's perfect. Adam Kirby has a great record on him. David Evans is going to have him spot on for this, and he loves Ascot. So, yeah, Rohan in the 2 o'clock for me. Okay,
Rohan as a nap selection is one of his favourite horses in training. A horse that I'm putting up as my nap is in the Balmoral Handicap, the final race, 4:40 at Ascot on Saturday. Migration is clearly extremely fragile. He doesn't do a huge amount of racing. He's a 6-year-old. He's only ran once this season, and that was earlier on at April at Newbury, where he was a really eye-catching second to Modern News. It was a big double-figure price that day. They've waited for him. He needs given the ground. They look after him massively as well, and I think he's got a good opportunity here. He's drawn in 23, which I don't think is ideal. Looking at Tom, he's nodding at me, and that's just a bit of a shocker. But I'll take my chances with a man like William Buick on board. He knows how to navigate his way around Ascot, all right, and he's a 10-1 nap, so that's all right for me. So we'll go from naps into the stat attack, which Tom has already given us a little bit of a preview into, covers Ascot.
Yeah, just a Champions Day stat attack. That's where most punters are going to be looking this weekend. And over the last 5 years, Champions Day favourites. Now, most people are going to be looking for these multiples, the likes of Inspiral, Baaeed, Emily Upjohn maybe. Favourites to the Champions Day have won 10 of 30 races, a 33% strike rate. Now, to put that into some context, the average in 2021 of winning favourites is 35%. So we're just below the average. Mm-hmm. It's not much of a disparity. So I think there are two takings from this. One, continue to assess the races as you would. Don't look at these events and see all that depth of top-class horses and think, oh, God, I've got to take on this favourite because of the price of this horse at 14 to 1, 16 to 1, whatever. And two, the age-old belief that testing ground screws races, you get these shocking, weird results, is rubbish at this meeting. So they're my takings.
Listen here, Ross. There's nothing to worry about the ground when it comes to Saturday at Ascot. Really intriguing stuff. Look, we've got some quality horses on offer here on Saturday, and we're really looking forward to it. It's a proper Champions Day, as it should be. So I'm really, really hopeful that we found a few winners for you. Look, we've got plenty of different selections as well. A reminder that new SBK customers can get £30 in free bets by betting £10. T's and C's always apply. We've been the SBK Podcast. You can find us on all your familiar podcast apps. We've also got our YouTube channel where you've got plenty of content from our ambassadors, and you can include stable tours as well. We'll be back as always next week. I hope we found a few winners for you. Thank you for joining us.